My name is Brock, and I'm an addict.
Hey, Brock.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. It's always an honor and a privilege. Sometimes coming up to do this, you don't want to do it. On the way here, I was talking to my sponsor, and the topic being the stability factor. I mean, I was reading out the Living Clean earlier today, and sometimes there's still instability, right? I was just like arguing with my wife about how, the enabling for our, collective teenage child is drawing a wedge into us. The that turmoil of like just where things are sometimes, but it's really important to be honest about these things, because I do have experience with stability, but also with instability. I was, like I said, talking to my sponsor on the way here, right? And I was thinking about the idea of like, I remember being 302'd a lot of times, and I would be left with medications that were mood stabilizers, right? They didn't work. They were incapable of working for somebody like me in that state because I didn't have the ability to be honest. I didn't have any clue of what serenity was. I didn't know how to find peace. I didn't know how to express myself to the world. The best I had was to put something in me, right? And all I ever got was these real bad results, upon like the next visit to wherever. If it was a jail cell, if it was another psych ward, like another treatment facility, whatever it was. Instability is more experienced in my life than stability is. However, right, our literature talks about how this is found in here. First and foremost being this higher power concept, which even that was a dosing. I had to come to that because I had to accept powerlessness over my addiction to even understand that I needed something to fill the void of what I couldn't fill alone. See, and it talks in there about that too, because it talks about not using like I'm powerless over all things as a cop out, right? Because I've heard that thing, like I have no control over anything, right? That's not real. The Serenity Prayer kind of lays that out too. It tells me that I have some push and I have some pull. Stability in the sense of like, I was thinking when I was reading that about like, a solid piece of furniture, like stable table, something that's like sturdy and sound. And like, that's what I'm called to be in this program, is like to have some steadfastness where I can like learn how to like let my rocking boat like find some smooth seas through using you in these groups. And there's power in that. There's power in like knowing that I can trust and confide in you, especially when it's a bunch of men that like I can get down with and just tell you like these last like even years, it's just kind of been this buildup of like feeling like in this reverse order in my own household, because like I feel like this teenager is priority number one and I'm somewhere third tier right next to the dog, She might have a leg up on me, to be quite honest. This shit's hard to accept. And then my wife is also one of us, right? So it's like to have those conversations, to have these expectations of like, hey, if you're in the rooms like I am, like we got to be doing the damn work that we're supposed to be doing. What are you doing? And like that leads to some fire ups, some flare ups, and like some real like some back and forth, because I don't have the ability to really hold back much. And I'm okay with that today, because like the character of who I've become in here wasn't who I started as. I was fragile, very, very fragile. I didn't have much confidence. I didn't have much self-awareness, and I didn't know really how to find it other than just get in your back pocket and trust what you had. Thank God that exists, right? Because like the higher power concept, this God thing, really opens up some enlightening doors in my life. My life is really, really good on paper. And I'm not telling you that like this is like one of those hopeless situations that's going to end in divorce. I'm just telling you there's some work that needs to be done on my base level. Because outside of that, it talks in there about like my expression to the world is a reflection of how I feel about me. So you need to know like what I present out here is how I feel about me, and sometimes it's not as like on point and as tight as sometimes it is other times. That's okay. See, because I've learned to trust this. I've learned to like believe that I can say stuff like that, and even if you judge me, like I don't have a feel about it. I don't have to tell you all things about everything, but like I need to like unload things. And doing it up here is not the most comfortable place to do it. But I believe in healing. I believe in like trying to fight for the next day clean, and that's today. The idea of like what this thing leads to is like a real magnificent journey. See, because it talks in there about like sometimes like we'll address our jobs and try something different. I had a real good, secure job for a good 8 years in this thing that I actually got through my service in H&I. I got introduced to this gig, and it was a good, solid structure of a job. But it was a job that didn't have any fulfillment to me. And I sat there figuring out what I could do that was more of a fit for me. I could have never done like this leap that I've done over the last couple of years. I went into business for myself, and it's becoming phenomenal. I'm enjoying things. I'm networking. I'm finding all these places. But like, if I didn't think that I believed in myself the way that I've learned to through you all, never would have happened. But like sometimes like these paths are long and drawn out, and I have to really have these heart to hearts with myself through this interactive prayer that like you teach me to do. I talk about this all the time because I want to make sure that like I'm giving the glory where glory's due to the fact that like I've adopted an 11-step practice for years. I created an accountability group with other men who were trying to get a system with that as well. The 11-step, right? So like it became this text thread with a few people that we would just say, done, did it, just back and forth. So it's like that reminder, you better get with God today. And like every morning there's prayer and meditation involved in my ritual. I chase out God. Like I know that I don't have the power that I possess with this thing without that connection. I've learned that, and I'm so grateful that I did. That was my missing link all along. That self-will factor that we can all identify with, I believe, of like trying to get it my way the way I want it done. Ineffective, doesn't work. But like I'm that stubborn guy. Like I'm the guy that I remember taking pride in being screamed at in rehab. I had this guy, like literally my therapist came out of his seat one time and he's like, "You're the most stubborn mother." And I was smiling to myself. I'm like, "You're damn right I am." Because he was trying to help me. He wanted me to stay long term in this treatment facility and like go to a halfway house and this other. And I'm like, well, I manipulated. I'm like, well, I heard you telling my parents about how good I was doing in here. Like, why do I need extra help? And I would just start playing him. But he was trying to save my life. See, I would always reject the thing that would help me. And I still sometimes do that. Because like I'll be real self-dependent and self-reliant. And then I get to this place where I'm like, I don't feel comfortable. Like I feel like this cloak and this weight on me that like, it's like wearing that lead vest whenever you're getting the x-ray, trying to walk around like with that. It's just like, it's staggering sometimes. But stability is exactly the opposite because it requires consistency. If I don't show up regularly, if I don't get a day clean that leads to another day clean, which leads to the next day clean, which leads to me working steps, which leads to me sponsoring, which leads to me participating in whatever part of this thing I need to participate in, I'm done. I've had doses, little bits of clean time before that I let go of because there's maintenance to it all. The fact that I have some time clean is irrelevant. It's about what I do today with it. And if I came in here with like this hotshot attitude, like I'm just going to drop some fire bombs on you and walk on out, that's the stupidest thing I could do because like I'm hurting right now. Maybe not as deep as I've hurt before. Okay, sure. But it doesn't mean there's not things that are still underneath the surface that are like they're gnawing. So I got to say those things because I know it's relatable. I talk to enough people. I know that it's foolish for me to just pretend like all is well all the time. But guess what? Collectively, we can really move some mountains. And like that's the power of the program. The idea that that I could just tap into you and get to where I can't get to alone. That very thing that isolation takes from me, because like that's the alternative to this. And like that's the life that led me to the rooms in the first place. Using by myself, alone, desperate, and getting nowhere. It was miserable. It was a dark place. There's no fulfillment in it. There was no hope. That place where it's like, please overdose. Please have nobody there to revive me this time. I know that all too well, man. And it's the exact reason why I have like this springboard effect where I just don't want that anymore. And it really is contingent on what I do with today, right? And it's just crazy because I flush back and I look throughout the whole process of like my amount of clean time here. And like from day one to day now is like an incredible process. And what's really cool is to be the person that we become, that I can identify myself as a miracle. I can literally stand here and tell you like the opportunities that I have, the places that I get to go, the people I get to meet, like it's crazy. Never ever was it on the radar. The same guy that didn't know how to carry a sentence with somebody because I was too geeked out to be able to speak. You know, like this transformation is real, but like I only get it because I believe that you got it. So it's always like that, find my place in the middle of it all with a sense of humility, and I'm just like part of it. You know, and I appreciate it for what it presents because all it is opportunistic. I get clean, I get this glamorous life, and all I really got to do is do some work. And the work isn't hard considering what work looks like, because like the work to use is really hard. When I scale it out, it's like that's insane to think that this is harder than that. Oh, you want me to get honest and I'm gonna get all bashful and hold up and walk out? It's crazy. And I remember that. I remember being in treatment and brushing through the 12 steps and being like, you know, yeah, no. And if I was going to do it, I just did it by reading them. I'm pretty sure I have a pretty good understanding. You know, we got this. There's a phrase in the sponsorship IP. It's a quote from a member, and it says, "It's pretty hard to spot self-deception by ourselves." Talk about rolling this thing into one sentence. Because like I'm my own problem, how can I possibly be my own solution, right? But the stability of you is what helps me get there, because I need it. I need to know your experience. I need to like invite you into my real problems. My sponsor can identify with what I'm going through. That's good. And if it wasn't him, he'd have pushed me off to somebody who could. There's always somebody to like trace out the line that has very similar experience. No problems are unique here. Just got to ask enough people. And like that's beautiful to know that there's that kind of support available. But see, like that was the initial, like the shock of it was to put myself in the center. Because I remember being in treatment and they're like, go to this convention this weekend. I was staying at my dad's house and like literally this place was like minutes from where he lived. I could have been there the whole time. It was a 12-step like discussion. It was this thing in East Liverpool that they ran. I don't know if it's still on or not. I was so afraid to go there by myself that I had to tell my dad, like, what day don't you work? Like, let's go. Because and he didn't even need it, right? But I just was too afraid. Like, what do I say to anybody? What happens? Sitting there just scared, trembling, right? We ended up walking in at noon on a Sunday. They were all leaving. But my dad was willing to go with me. But like I had such a resistance to like I didn't know what you did in here. And I didn't know how to tell you like I'm hurting. And I didn't know what that would look like because like the streets don't teach that kind of presence and that kind of relationship. This thing is all different. It's like I take everything I thought I knew and just flip it upside down. And it's hard. It's hard to think that this thing can help me. Because it looks like you guys all know each other. It looks like I don't fit in. It looks like a lot of things. You come from different places. You have a job, I don't. You drive, I've suspended, like whatever it is, you know, it's always like that, like just mirroring it to the wrong angle that doesn't allow me to connect to it. And then I just stay out there suffering, beating my head against the wall, and then I use, and I wonder why I can't stop using. There's this other experience that I had, right? I was my first treatment, and I talk about it like every time. There's such a power in this for me, and I got to say it so I remember it. There was an H&I guy came in. It was whenever the Steelers were playing the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, and he came in to share his voluntary time to us on a Sunday night, and his name was Steve. And I remember being so pissed off listening to him speak because he spoke past kickoff. I was sitting there like forming my resentment heavily, sitting there like, dude, Steve, shut up, like Steelers. But he keeps talking, and I'm trying to stay pissed. And something happened where I started to relate to what he's talking about, and I got like these tingles on my arm. I didn't know to identify it, what to call it at the time, but I knew it was spiritual. Because I started like getting like those little flutters, and I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but like it started to like hit me and relate, and I didn't even want it to. It pierced my disease of addiction, right? And I went, and it ended, and I just brushed it off like it didn't happen. I got myself kicked out of this place the next day. I went home and used, but it hurt different. That the message of recovery has a way of really screwing up getting high, right? Like I just couldn't, because like all I could think is like I don't have to be doing this. And I'm like, how much do I have to use to forget that I don't want to know that? Get the hell out of my head. And it ruins it. So if you use after this, I hope it ruins it for you too. Maybe you'll come back. That's the whole idea. That's why we say the shit we say. Just remember, like, you can have a great life, but you got to do the work to get it. And once I knew that, man, I couldn't shake it. And I had a couple more years of just doing it the way that I do it. And it was more painful than anything I could ever endure. To eventually I get to a point where, like, my last treatment, I was getting picked up, and I remember talking to my sister. Like, says a prayer over the phone to me and blah, blah, blah. And I got all my paraphernalia. I got all this junk that I'm like, I'm going to hold on to it for when I get home, because just in case I want to then. And I'm going back and forth. Do I keep it or do I toss it? And I tossed it. And I was just like, I was so defeated before it even began, because like I had always failed. And I just remember, like, I just kind of broke down after I threw this stuff away. And I said the most earnest and honest prayer I'd ever said. And I just said, God, please help me. And I don't even know if I knew what God was at the time. But it's all I knew to do was like, and I was tearing. And I'm just like, I'm done. I'm toast. But I just said that, and I've never used again. I don't know how that happened. I ended up going from treatment to jail for a good 10 months, which became my halfway house, which was great. A crazy experience in there. I mean, whatever. That's a whole other story, but like, it worked. I got some space from me out across the state where I didn't see my kids and my mommy and all these people. I just sat alone for a while. Best thing that could have ever happened. I learned accountability. I learned to challenge the way that I viewed myself, my surroundings, my mistakes, my past experiences that I didn't take the opportunity. I learned to like recognize that like this experience never had to happen if I would have taken any of the other opportunities to change before now. It became real personal. And I didn't really like it, but I knew it was true. You see, like, digesting truth in here is hard. And that's all it's really about. Like, I go through these steps and like I get a bunch of stuff, and it's like, you got to eat that and let it pass. But it doesn't taste real good in the time. But like the way it cleanses me, it does. After it's all said and done. And I learned to like take this one little nugget, and I'm like, that did what it did. I got to imagine this will too. So I start looking at things like defects of character, my attitude. Simplicity of attitude is critical. If I can find gratitude in all things as best I can, even if I'm like bullshitting myself to some degree, it still helps. Because like, there's always something to be grateful for. Because even if it's just about the fact of my freedom of living this way in comparison to like that old dude, that's enough. I really, like, in my prayer and meditation, I'm always like letting myself drift back into the way that I really used to think at the time of using. It was so damn small. It was only about using. How do I get more? I lived in this trapped space. I couldn't travel outside of Newcastle, Pennsylvania. I had a radius of this big because I'm too far away from my stuff. If I went somewhere, I tried to pack heavy so that I could be gone, and it was always like this skate back, because it was like a rubber band effect, man. I couldn't go anywhere. And my head was a dangerous spot, man. And like whenever I let this thing like have its own way and like and expand it and start to like let it think, and I find other people that start to like implant new ideas and concepts into it, like a lot of new ideas can happen in spring. New life, new opportunity, growth. These are words that we use. Hope, love. But I got to let you in. That's the factor. I don't get better without help. I don't get better without somebody looking through me and telling me like, hey, that's incorrect. Try it this way. Flip that over, pull this, try that. And like when I start to like dissect like the yarn ball that I've created of myself, start to excavate this thing and get down to my true nature and spirit, I find a good life. But like, that's the thing is I've learned to not do is I can't bullshit myself. Like if I'm not doing the work, I know I'm not doing the work. It's not about me telling you the work I do. I'm either doing it or I'm not. And if I'm not, it's to my own demise. I don't like living that way. It's a pained life at best, you know? There's a lot of like real powerful things that happen here and have over the course of time. Like my family relations coming back together, the way that I'm able to co-parent with my son and his mom and stepfather. Like there's a lot of value in what we do and what it does to like help other people develop whenever we get the opportunity to share it, because it isn't supposed to be just about like inside of the rooms. It's that. This is my break from it all. Like that one thing that like I guarantee I'm not using while I'm here today. And then I take like new ideas, what Sean says next. Like I start to like listen and put it into effect, and I try to take it out there and try something different and get better results and like challenge what I think I know. But the more I do that with that open mind and like that honesty factor and like the stuff that tracks out with that, the better I get. That's all I'm really trying to do is like learn to appreciate my life without the use of drugs. And it's happened. Most of the time, it's always happening. It's hard for me to really like get derailed and totally negative. It's too good for that. I've never had a life this good in my entire life. Never thought I would. And I've had if I reversed back 10 years, I would have told you the same thing then. See, I've heard people talk about it like that. Like gratitude is like learning to appreciate what you have the moment you have it. And like sometimes like whenever I get down with that idea and it gets better, I'm like, whoa, I didn't need any more. And I'm not doing this to get more. But it keeps coming because like we keep tapping and we keep growing as a fellowship, as an individual, as part of the thing. The more I do, the more I get, and I don't want to overdo my time, but like thanks for the opportunity, because like I did need to get that off my chest, and like it's good, I just get to like get away from her for a minute. You just sit down with a bunch of dudes and be like, this is way better. Why'd I get married? Thank you for letting me share.